Now, first of all, before I start this quote-unquote rant, I want to tell you something. Not everything about this episode was bad. There were many positive things, which I will cover in a bit. But first of all, I want to do two things. First of all, I want to say happy birthday to one of my most loyal subscribers called Matthew Diaz. So yeah, bro, happy birthday, all the best. Second thing, I want to give you a small interesting fact. So in today's episode, when Sarada was talking to the guy from the police, like the Konoha police or whatever, I've noticed that his last name was Fuma, and I just knew I heard that name somewhere. So I went to Narutopedia, I did a research, and I found out that the first animal path of pain was actually from the Fuma clan. They're like the main characteristic of that clan is that they wield this big shuriken or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Now let's get into the review slash rant. I want to cover the positives, and the fact that there are so many positives about this episode made me even more pissed at the end. So first of all, the episode starts with the cat mission. This episode gets +1 point for the nostalgia effect. Perfect, it was great. After that, there were many funny moments. Each member of Team 7 got a funny moment. When Sarada was talking to the guy from the Fuma clan, he basically mentioned the Uchiha clan and their, history. I mean, Mitsuki mentioned it as well. But anyway, at one point he said, "I can't wait for you to join the police force, Sarada." And then she smiled and she was like, "I don't think so." That was extremely funny. Mitsuki and Boruto, there was this really funny moment when Boruto asked Mitsuki something, I can't remember exactly what, and then Mitsuki was like, "I'm just happy to do this mission with you." That was extremely funny seeing Boruto's reaction. And also when Boruto was talking with Konohamaru was, saying some things to Boruto, and then Boruto was like, "You picked those lines from my dad, right?" And then, Konohamaru was like shocked and all that. So the episode, as I said, first of all, we had the nostalgia effect at the start, and then three great funny moments. I mean, Boruto's series in general has these great comedy moments, which I really, really enjoy and like. Of course, that's just me being subjective. I wanna before I start talking about something that pissed me off, I wanna mention this new guy. I don't even remember his name. It was Haguruma. I really don't know. Let's just call him the bank robber. Anyway, before he was introduced, Boruto was complaining about these missions, and at one point Konohamaru was like, "It's peace, what do you expect?" and stuff like that. I don't want to cover that part of the episode too much, because I really want to talk about this. So, this bank robber guy gets introduced. And at first, it was kind of obvious that he's not a real villain or anything. He was just a man who got fired from his company. And here comes the part that pissed me off. So, first of all, when I was watching the episode, I was surprised by how good it started. Because they've mentioned depression, suicide, overwork, because I don't know if you know this, but in Japan, many people die from working too much. And basically, this guy mentioned how many people were working too much, and then he was left with this project, with this game, and then his boss, made up some things, which also happens in real life. And then, he kind of became depressed and wanted to kill himself. So as I said, depression, suicide, and, these types of things are very, very mature. And at one point, I was like, damn, this is going to become one of my favorite episodes, because I just want to repeat it again. First we had the nostalgia, then we had the comedy, and then we got the backstory of this guy. Not to mention that there was a sad soundtrack playing while the backstory of this guy was being revealed, and that soundtrack was beautiful. If you didn't hear it, go rewatch the scene where he talks about his past. It was really beautiful, like really beautiful. And I'm not saying that Boruto is for kids or anything, it's just I didn't expect to see something so mature in Boruto. And the reason why I mentioned that many people in Japan die from overworking is because, I mean, 98% of you know this, but, at least 1 or 2 people won't know this. Boruto is an anime, and anime is animation produced in Japan, so this was like a direct reference to Japan's, you know, situation in our world. And you know, this guy basically wasn't evil, so to say, but he wanted, you know, to kill himself in that bank or whatever. And okay, here comes the, oh my god, I don't know how to start. So first of all, when somebody says talk no jutsu, it's usually a meme or a joke. I actually really like talk no jutsu. It's one of my favorite things about Naruto, Naruto Shippuden, and you know, the fact that Naruto used talk no jutsu so many times makes him my favorite anime character at the moment. And you know, talk no jutsus of Naruto were always done really well. For example, when he was fighting Pain, he was fighting this man for 20 episodes, exchanging fists. You know, I think that Naruto and Sasuke talked about this in the past. When two shinobi fight, the best way they can understand each other is through fists. Anyway, he was fighting against Pain for 20 episodes. Nagato was able to see that, yeah, this guy really wants to change the world, and then he got, quote-unquote, changed. And then, you know, he did rebirth on all people. The talk no jutsu at the end of the Zabuza arc was beautiful. And as I said, I really like talk no jutsu. But Boruto as a series is just taking the piss at the moment. So, the idea was great for Boruto to change this man. But this guy, okay, this guy wanted to commit a suicide. When you want to commit a suicide, that's the bottom. That means that you have no other options. You lost it completely. Nobody should do this except if committing a suicide will save you from being tortured constantly or something like that. But anyway, the point is, this is not a joke. We're talking about suicide, something horrible. And then Boruto says, I like your game. And then he's like, I don't want to commit a suicide. Are you taking the piss? Now the idea is great. It's perfect. Not great, perfect. But the execution. See, I thought that Sumire being the villain in the Nue arc was a bad execution, because the idea was great, you know, when you think about it. A girl that was, you know, brainwashed by her father suddenly wants to kill everybody in the village. The idea sounds, again, pretty much perfect, but then it was executed terribly. You know, Sumire never showed any suspicious behavior up until one episode before she became a villain, and it felt very forced. As I said, it was a great idea, don't get me wrong, but the execution was terrible. I always thought that execution was terrible, but after seeing this episode, Sumire being a villain seems like the best plot twist in Naruto, even though it's the worst plot twist in the history of Naruto. I mean, are you taking the piss? And it's not only this guy and Sumire, Kagura kept changing his mind 7 times every single fucking episode. And he got talk no jutsu very quickly. As well as Sumire. Sumire went from being this normal girl to wanting to nuke the entire Konoha, Henley village, to being talk no jutsu. Then everything happened in 2 episodes. Make these things longer. Don't make me feel like a retard while watching these episodes. There's just no way that this guy got changed after 60 seconds. Literally, all it took was for Boruto to say, I like your game. Obviously, they talked before, but let me add one more thing that makes this thing completely retarded. The game that Boruto bought is a sequel, which means that the previous game sold many copies and that many people bought it. So it doesn't make sense that this guy doesn't know that anybody else likes his game. Yes, he stated that Boruto was the first to tell him, but when he's walking on the streets, kids are not gonna know that he was the one who made the game, right? It's just, oh my god, I feel like a retard for analyzing this. Like, I reviewed every single episode of Boruto, but I really feel like a retard. And they fluffed this amazing episode. This episode had the potential to be one of my favorite episodes. Apparently this man doesn't know that people like his game, even though it got a fucking sequel. It had Kagemasa on the cover, if I'm not mistaken, and it was stated earlier in Boruto that Kagemasa is very popular. Come on, writers. Like, I know that the writers of Boruto are not gonna see this, but this is completely retarded. What are you doing? All the threats, quote-unquote threats we got in Boruto so far were complete bullcrap. We just had those two terrible villains in Boruto's first mission, and I don't think they're terrible because they were weak. It's just they had no high motivations or anything. They were just there for the sake of being there. And I thought it wasn't so bad. And now we get a man who wants to commit a fucking suicide. And this man gets changed after one sentence. And you want me to accept this talk no jutsu as something legit. Fuck off. When you review something, you can't just include the enjoyment factor, because I enjoyed this episode a lot, except that part. You need to be objective. I just need to point this out. I know that many of you were probably confused, or surprised, I should say, when you heard what I had to say in this video. But that's because you're not a YouTuber. When you're a YouTuber, you need to analyze every fucking detail because, thousands of people are waiting for your reviews, which are supposed to be objective. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed this episode a lot. But this little thing just makes me give this episode a rating of 7. Yeah, normally it would be maybe 9.5, maybe even 10 if they did it properly, if they made this a bit longer. This guy literally got changed in 30 seconds, which is very unrealistic. And the episode had so much potential, with suicide, depression, and overwork being the main topics. But no, the writers just decided to fuck everything up. I really don't understand why they're doing this with all the threats. The Seven Swordsmen, Sumire, Kagura, the two villains from the first mission, this guy, like, what's going on with the threats on board? Everything is perfect. The dialogue, the interactions, the comedy, openings, endings, music, everything is perfect. But what about the villains, about threats? I feel like a retard reviewing this, honestly. Yeah, at the end of the episode, basically we saw that this guy was probably manipulated by the Byakuya gang, something like that. I think that's the name. Anyway, tomorrow I'm gonna preview the next episode, as I do with pretty much all of the episodes, and I have a lot of things to say, because the preview for the next episode looks very interesting, but again, my thoughts I will save for that video. Guys, if you're new to my channel and if you're into Boruto, I don't usually rant, but I just had to do this because this was complete bullcrap that we saw in this episode. An episode had a lot of potential. Anyway, that was your boy Hokage. Twitter and Discord links are in the description below. Let me know what you think about this episode. If you disagree with me, why do you disagree with me? Because there's no way that somebody who wants to commit a suicide is going to change his mind after one sentence in one episode in a couple of minutes. It's just not realistic. This talk no jutsu thing going on in Boruto needs to be expanded. When you talk no jutsu somebody, do it for many episodes, and then I'm going to accept it. I'm not going to accept this bullcrap with Sumire, Kagura, and this Hagurumu. I don't even give a shit. Sorry for the negativity, but I just had to be objective and honest. That was your boy Hokage, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.